Welcome to Liberation Lens, where stories unfold beyond the headlines and perspective truly matters. History isn't finished, it's unfolding. This is Liberation Lens. Perspective matters.
Welcome to Liberation Lens, Perspective Matters. In this episode, we lift the veil on a confrontation not fought on traditional battlefields, yet no less devastating. A war without tanks. Without declarations. A conflict cloaked in code, silence, and shadows. This is the story of Israel's covert campaign against Iran, a clash where assassinations replace invasions, and malware delivers the first strike. We explore how international law is being tested, how definitions of war have blurred, and how the rules that once governed peace and conflict are fraying at the edges. Because when the world looks away, wars don't end. They evolve. A war without declaration is often referred to as a covert war, undeclared conflict, or more starkly, a shadow war. It's not launched with speeches or flags. It unfolds in silence, deniability, and ambiguity. Troops may not march, but cyberattacks crash systems. Missiles fly, but no official war is announced. Assassinations occur, but no battlefield exists. In legal terms, such actions can still amount to acts of aggression under international law, especially if they violate another state's sovereignty or result in loss of life or destruction. The lack of a formal declaration doesn't absolve responsibility. It merely obscures accountability. Modern warfare increasingly thrives in this gray zone. Drone strikes beyond borders, proxy militia support, economic sabotage, and information warfare. It's war without the optics of war, but with all its consequences. Now, having said that, we must note that Israel has not formally declared war on Iran. Yet, over the past 2 decades, it has conducted a series of military operations, including cyberattacks, assassinations, and airstrikes, which many legal scholars and international observers classify as acts of aggression. This undeclared conflict centers on one issue: Iran's nuclear program. But beneath that lies a deeper geopolitical rivalry, one shaped by ideology, regional dominance, and the legacy of preemption. For over a decade, Israel has been locked in a clandestine campaign against Iran, involving cyberattacks, like Stuxnet, targeted assassinations of scientists, and regular airstrikes on Iranian-linked targets in Syria. Despite no formal state of war, this slow-burning escalation has all the hallmarks of warfare, just waged in deniable silence. In 2010, the world witnessed the dawn of a new kind of warfare. A computer worm, later identified as Stuxnet, was unleashed on Iran's Natanz nuclear facility. It silently infiltrated Siemens control systems, causing centrifuges to spin out of control and self-destruct. As documented by cybersecurity journalist Kim Zeta in Countdown to Zero Day, 2014, the Stuxnet computer worm, co-developed by Israel's Unit 8200 and the US National Security Agency, damaged nearly 1,000 centrifuges at Iran's Natanz nuclear facility. According to Zeta in 2014 and the New York Times in 2010, the Stuxnet computer worm attack marked the first known cyber attack to physically destroy infrastructure, marking a turning point in global security. Though it was never officially claimed, the operation was widely attributed to Israel and the United States. Iran called it an act of cyber-terrorism. Others called it a masterstroke of digital sabotage. Let's now look at targeted killings, the assassination of scientists. Between 2010 and 2020, at least 5 Iranian nuclear scientists were assassinated. Masoud Ali Mohammadi and Majid Shahiri were assassinated in 2010. The most high-profile assassination was that of Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, described by Western intelligence as the architect of Iran's nuclear weapons program. Fakhrizadeh was killed in Abzad, east of Tehran on November 27, 2020 by a remote-controlled machine gun embedded in a parked truck. The weapon, reportedly operated via satellite and enhanced with artificial intelligence, was linked to Israel's Mossad. Israel has neither confirmed nor denied involvement. But former Mossad officials have hinted at responsibility, calling Fakhrizadeh a legitimate target. Iran, meanwhile, called it an act of state terrorism. Beyond Iran's borders, the conflict has spilled into Syria. Since 2013, Israel has conducted hundreds of airstrikes targeting Iranian military infrastructure and weapons convoys supporting Hezbollah. Israel argues these are preemptive strikes, meant to prevent Iranian entrenchment near its borders. But under international law, such actions raise serious questions. Article 2.4 of the UN Charter prohibits the use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state. Legal scholars argue that unless there is an imminent threat, these Israeli strikes constitute violations of sovereignty. So, what are the legal and ethical implications? Are Israeli actions acts of aggression? Under international law, particularly the UN Charter, the use of force is tightly regulated. Article 2.4 explicitly forbids the threat or use of force against another state, except in cases of self-defense or with Security Council authorization. Unfortunately, Israel's actions, cyberattacks, extraterritorial assassinations, and cross-border strikes, have not been sanctioned by the UN. Isn't this surprising? Doesn't the silence of the United Nations raise more questions about its legitimacy and relevance in the face of some states? However, while critics argue that Israel's actions amount to a systematic campaign of aggression, supporters of Israel counter that Iran's nuclear ambitions and regional activities pose an existential threat, justifying preemptive defense. But the legal threshold for preemption remains high and controversial. And amidst the silence of the international community, there is now an escalation and the risk of an open war. In the early hours of June 13, 2025, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion. This marked the beginning of a sweeping and unprecedented military campaign targeting Iran's nuclear infrastructure, military leadership, and strategic assets. The military figures widely reported to have been killed include Major Generals Hussein Salami, Mohammad Boghari, Gholam Ali Rashid, Ali Shadmani, and Amir Ali Hajizadeh. At least 6 senior nuclear scientists were also confirmed killed in the strikes, though their names have not been made public. The operation involved over 200 Israeli combat aircraft in its first 24 hours, striking more than 100 targets across Iran. This included the Natanz uranium enrichment facility, missile bases, and command centers. It was described as the most extensive Israeli military action since the Iran-Iraq War era. The US officially distanced itself, but reports suggest it provided intelligence and missile defense support to Israel. Iran declared the attacks a declaration of war and retaliated with a barrage of missiles and drones, some reaching Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, with significant psychological impact. Note that this marked the most direct confrontation to date. The global reaction has been a mix of alarm, condemnation, and strategic recalibration. The International Atomic Energy Agency confirmed that key facilities at Natanz and Esfahan were struck. As if to worsen the already bad situation, the United States, in support of Israel, launched its first direct strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities on June 22, 2025. This happened at approximately 2:30 am Iran time, under the codename Operation Midnight Hammer. The world now watches as two regional powers edge closer to full-scale war, one undeclared, the other undeniable. To sum it all up, in the age of cyberweapons and remote assassinations, war no longer needs a declaration. But its consequences are no less real. In the realm of international law, silence can be as consequential as speech. And in the arena of modern warfare, ambiguity is not a weakness, it's a weapon. As Israel and Iran continue their high-stakes shadow war, the global community faces a reckoning. When deterrence morphs into destruction, when preemption crosses into provocation. Who draws the line? In this age of unmanned drones and unseen saboteurs, perhaps the biggest casualty isn't just infrastructure or lives, it's accountability. Thank you for watching Liberation Lens, where perspective is not a luxury, but a necessity.
You have just seen the world through a different lens. Subscribe, comment, share, and help amplify voices that deserve to be heard. Until next time, keep looking deeper. Liberation Lens, perspective matters.